Hello hero, it's Lucy Lanhorn. M is for Mastodon today. I'm hoping I don't get a teensy copyright strike like last week's band, but that's why we're listening to this. I hope not too loudly and then I'm on the safe side of things. But we both enjoy this music, don't we? And that's the only reason why I'm playing it. M is also for the Marseille Mini. We're going to do a 5-card reading in one of 3 piles using the 1650 Viéville Marseille deck, to just sort of explore your circumstances at the moment, anything that might want to pop up for you in a lucky dip style, using keywords from this letter M envelope and using the D12 so that we can explore astrological house placement, which is just a fancy way of saying I want to see what area the reading is going to be in for each of you. Now, as well as the 3 tarot readings that we're going to explore, there are also 3 channeled readings. I know they're not for everyone, which is why I do them separately. So when you do pick a pile, as I'm sort of shuffling along, please do pick one for your tarot and one for your channeled if you're up for receiving both. And if channeled stuff is not your bag and you see tarot as more of a thought experiment and you don't agree with things like direct contact or mediumship, you don't really believe in any of that, that's absolutely fine. You can just pick one pile for your tarot and that will be the appropriate reading for you in terms of, you know, visualizing your goals, spurring you on motivationally, whatever it might be that you need this week from the letter M. If you do want to add to the envelope for any further letters, or indeed any letters before M for the next time around that we do this alphabetized lucky dip, please do comment like N is for, or P is for, or whatever it is down below with your chosen word. I'll take anything except profanities and names because we don't want to direct everybody's attention onto one first name person. That's not very magically ethical, I would say, nor is it very internet ethical actually. But yeah, anything except kind of names, proper nouns and profanity will do. So go as wild as you want. And I think that's, oh no, that's not everything I wanted to say. Let's explore your crystals for today. So it was a very straightforward game in terms of crystal helpers. We have citrine and we have it being enhanced by quartz. Now, citrine has many meanings, and if you're in a magical paradigm that uses crystal work, feel free to look up all the alternate stuff to this. But my first impression from this is that you might not have had a great week. Citrine is a lifter, it's a happy stone. It's the thing to get you out of your head and into rightful action. It's a motivator, a get out of bed stone. It's the sun in a crystal if you're working with solar energies, or if your circadian rhythms are off, perhaps from night work. So for some of you that will apply. But generally speaking, because this is a general reading for many, many people, I would say that the theme that sort of involves all of you this week is that it's not been such a great time, or you need a bit of pep in your step, or a bit of sunshine in your room, right, as you're watching. So I hope that the citrine, if you sort of focus upon it, can help bring that to you today. Or you may be pulled to work with citrine as a stone in your personal practice, whatever that may be. You know, it can be as simple as sitting with a rock in your hand and thinking about your circumstances. It doesn't need to be ritual or anything like that, but you do you. And with all of that said, and with my favourite song coming on, it's just the Curl the Burl, pile 1, pile 2, pile 3. I will see you at your timestamp. Pile 1, hello. M is for moving. Interesting. I've been taking that journey myself of late. Let's have a look at your cards. Oh, actually, before we continue with those, if that one wanted to come out, let's just check your D12, see what house we're in for this reading. Okay, so we're in the 9th. Interesting stuff. Some of you may be moving to pursue something in terms of, I don't want to say career, but sort of higher education, things like that. Or it may just be that you've got an interest in travel that is leading to a bigger move. But this isn't set in stone. Let's look at what your cards have to say as well. Because, as I say, I'm reading for a large audience. Or hopefully, anyway, by the time this goes out. Ooh. And we have the final card flipping. And do we need any clarifiers? Yes, but not that one. Okay. You let me know when you're done. This one. Yeah, okay. Ooh, interesting clarifier. Right. I'm just going to meditate on these cards for a moment. I'll be back in a jiff. Hopefully you won't feel the cut. Hey Pile One, I'm back. So, I do feel for many of you that this is a physical move coming up in your near future. If that's not something you're planning and already discussing, then certainly movement in terms of travelling long term to a place, potentially with a partner, because we have counterpart energies here with the King and Queen respectively of Cups. I would also say that if you're not either in a partnership or kind of looking to move with or near somebody that you find romantically appealing, this is probably not your pile, and I do apologise, but please check out one of the others. Oh, I feel called as well to say that at the beginning I didn't point out that crow was part of your reading. The crowfoot is ethically sourced, vegan, etc. It's sourced from roadkill locally, all is well, right? I can vlog about my hobbies in that sense elsewhere if any of you require it, but just know that it is, it's not something I've hurt or killed to get that particular crow's foot. But the reason that I say it now, and I think the reason I didn't say it at the beginning, is because it's probably specific to this pile. Crow is a trickster energy, so if you're viewing this before my upload of the orange colour reading in my Spectrum series, then I would advise you to either keep an eye out for that or subscribe, because I think you may be in the pile entitled Trick, right? I haven't filmed it yet, but when I think Trick, I think Trickster, and Crow is coming up. And again, Crow fits in with this citrine vibe of frivolity and needing to be more light-hearted about something, needing kind of tricky, adaptive energy in whatever it is that you're doing, right? So, yeah, before I begin, I should say that, because I think that is for you. I may even remove it for later piles, because I think that message is specifically for you guys. So, we've got the world, which I think does imply a movement in terms of location. As I say, this could be a long-term trip, so any kind of holiday that's going on for more than a week somewhere. But for many of you, this is just moving in, either with somebody or moving with someone you already live with to somewhere else, right? With the King and Queen of Cups, I'm not saying that this is a heteronormative relationship at all, but it's certainly counterpart energy. So this is somebody that you're viewing as a soulmate, perhaps as a twin flame, certainly as somebody that you could see yourself with for a long time. This can apply to a friendship as well, if you're not resonating with the romantic thing, but you have a friend who you're looking to move with, who has maybe been by your side for a long time, or you just have a lot of similarities and really understand each other. That could refer to this relationship. However, for the vast majority of people I'm reading for, and remember it is a broad audience, this will be a pairing, a couple, right? Or a potential couple. Even if you're not specifically together yet, I think you're talking about house sharing or being in the same city even, something to do with aligning locations together. And it's very positive, right? The overall sort of thing of the reading, the overall energy, is an uplifting one. We've got two major arcanas, so it's a big move. We've got counterpart energy, which normally bodes well for a particular dynamic. But then we also have some sort of concerns and stuff, and I feel like they're mainly coming from your end, and that's why you're needing to view this at the time that I'm uploading it, or whenever it is that you see it, right? The first thing to speak about is that underlying all of this fantastic, appropriate to ninth house, world, expansive energy, there is a sense of indecision, and I think it's coming from you. It's this Two of Swords over here, right? And I think that this may be in relation to ninth house things, because the ninth isn't necessarily about a change of location. It can be about travel, but mainly it's about the expansion of ideas. It can be about higher education, so some of you will be going to the same place as a student as your potential partner, or sort of going somewhere chasing some kind of expansion of the mind, but in a very fire-based way, right? This is the Sagittarian rulership over this whole thing. So I think the indecision really is whether you can still remain expansive in this dynamic, perhaps you're moving in with the person for the first time, or if you've lived together before, perhaps there's been a bit of a problem regarding your own freedom when you are together. If that's the case, you may also resonate with my red-orange Pal 3, which I will link in the timestamp bit of the comments. But I think whatever it is, there's a sense from your end that, like, is this a good idea though? And although these are counterparts, they are facing away from each other. So whichever you identify as, be it the sort of more dominant or more passive intuitive energy within this relationship, I think you're kind of not looking at each other. You're both, it's weird because it's a cup's energy, which should be highly emotional and maybe even sentimental, romantic, etc. But it's almost as if by not looking at each other, you guys are viewing it from an analytical place. And sometimes the King of Cups in particular can be about putting the emotions in a box or under wraps or sort of floating on top of them in a particularly stoic way. And there is a bit of that going on. It's a bit like, yes, this would be magnificent and loving and beautiful, but also is it a logical thing? And you're both kind of chasing your separate trains of logic around that in a way that I think is possibly leading to minor conflict. We have conflict coming up in the kind of near future energy. I don't want you to panic about that because it is very minor with it being a 5 of Wands. It's just bickering, it's just kind of niggling at each other, being a bit snappy with each other. And I think that the underlying tension, the tension underpinning that, should I say, is from this 2 of Swords indecision on the part of whoever it is that you identify as the sort of still on the back foot party, right? This could be, for some of you, and again, it's a minority, but if you are thinking about marriage or anything like that, it could be that one of you is having cold feet and just feeling a little bit indecisive about the extent to which they can expand their own, their personal life and their personal hobbies, passions, etc. as part of a proper couple, if you like. And I say proper with like inverted commas because I know that marriage isn't for everyone, but if this is a step up in commitment for a couple, this thing of moving closer to each other or moving in together, there is certainly one person that is having a little bit of trepidation. And I say trepidation rather than reservation because I don't think it's an outright refusal of the position. I think it's just that natural cold feet kind of an energy. And I am noticing the feet sort of cropping up in the characters in this, so that's emphasised even more. With the Judgment being the clarifier for the whole thing, there is a particular calling for one of you, perhaps for both of you, but I think mainly it's you, that might be impeded by moving at this time specifically, because there's time-based stuff going on in the imagery for me, or particularly moving in with another person. It may be that you've been living practically as a single person for a long time, even if you haven't been single, and therefore there's a kind of, again, it's all resonating with that red-orange reading, but it's this sense of, can I still pursue the things that I want to pursue, which for some of you is a vocational calling, maybe even a spiritual calling, in a dynamic where I'm seeing to somebody else's needs, or I'm taking them into account in terms of my schedule or in terms of the space that we share in a very practical way, right? For those who run their own businesses or anything like that, there's a real question here of whether that can continue in quite the same fashion if you're in the company of somebody that you really care about. And that's not a slight on them at all. It's just to say that these are normal everyday concerns that everyone has to think about when they come together in a more cooperative fashion. Cooperation, I think, is something that you're both good at, but perhaps you're not both used to, right? And again, with these two figures looking away from each other and with the World card looking away from the whole reading, this World represents union, it represents balance. For some of you, this is the culmination of a twin flame dynamic where you're coming into union and coming together. But even within that union, there's a sense that they don't want to look at the rest of the reading. There's a minor inconvenience, a niggle, which is not It's not flying with both of you. And even if your partner isn't experiencing quite the same emotions on this, or vice versa, there is a sense that both of you know what's up with that. Both of you understand that there is a nervousness to the process. The song that's come up is Octopus Has No Friends. And I'm being pulled to sort of point that out. I mean, it's a great song, but partly because I think one of you is more social than the other. And that's echoed again with these figures down here, right? And it's kind of, can the other person continue to have that Sagittarian expansiveness if the other one wants to put the focus on social affairs? Now, that may ring true for you, it may be for the other person. Again, switch it as you see fit. But certainly the person that identifies with this 9 energy, this 9th house, is very much worried about what that will mean in terms of their counterpart, and whether they will obstruct the social life of the other person, but also whether they will be obstructed in pursuits that are decidedly more introverted or that require a bit of privacy from social engagements in order to carry them through. For a tiny number of you, you are also tarot readers and you're thinking about moving in with somebody, but you're aware that readings need to be in a confidential space, in a quiet space, etc. And you're a little bit concerned about how that's going to play out. But I think the reason that you're seeing this overall is that I'm here to tell you it is a good idea. The reservations that either one of you are having about this situation are valid. I don't want to discount the concerns you may have, but I feel with you both being Cups energy that you're communicative enough and mature enough emotionally to have a good chat about this before you really commit to anything. And I mean that even if you signed a contract already. And to explore what it is that you both want out of this from an emotional perspective, from the perspective of the dynamic of the relationship. And I think that is going to be the thing to solve these concerns for both of you. At the moment, what's coming across is that there is a situation which could be ideal, but no communication about that situation. And that's the problem, right? You guys need to have a sit down, and during that time, I think less of an emphasis on practical concerns and more on why it is that you both had this goal in the first place, why you wanted this person to live with and vice versa. You know, pulling the energy back into that frame is going to be really useful to being able to work out the nitty gritty stuff, the sort of more pentacles stuff that you'll notice isn't really present in the reading, so that you can get into that good vibration of being together and sort of both fulfill yourselves in terms of manifestation, because you're not pissed off by the other person, right? Because you've already sorted it out. You both know why you're here. You've figured out your why, as the self-help books would say, and you've communicated it clearly to each other from a place of love, whether this is romantic or not. If this is a trip rather than a moving in, then just know that the same kinds of things apply. I think either one of you is a little bit nervous about the other having different ideas about what will happen, different itineraries, etc. But I think the same advice is there for you, right? Have a good chat about this. Come to each other with not just your concerns, but the reasons that you're excited about going, excited about expanding. The song at the moment is all the heavy lifting, so I feel like don't do all the emotional heavy lifting yourself. Don't expect your partner to do it all themselves, but come to them with a spirit of, listen, we can do this in a very cooperative, equal way, and you are the person that is capable of that with me, because we understand each other so well. So let's both step up to this on an equal level and figure out, you know, how it is that it's going to work. And I don't think you'll be breaking the news to them if this is you that has the concerns, but I do think you'll be easing their mind a little bit just by bringing it up before you, as I say, sort of set foot into anything a little bit more concrete. So I hope that was helpful to you. Please do stick around if you picked this pile for the channeled. If you didn't and you'd like to say thank you, I will absolutely take a like. I would love a subscription. I'd adore it if you shared it with friends and see what pile they got and what kind of things that they're thinking about their situation. There is also an option of a PayPal donation with the button down below. I'd really appreciate just a quid or a fiver or anything like that to get us through these cold winters. But if that's not appropriate for you at this time, or you'd rather sort of keep an eye on the channel and book a reading at a later date maybe, links down below for that as well. Whatever it is that you choose to do in this energetic exchange, I hope that this movement forward is as blissful for you as I feel it could be. And take care, Pile 1. Pile 1, your channeled message. Everything's moving along quite swiftly today. If I didn't get you for the card reading, I didn't point out at the very beginning that Crow was with us for this whole thing, right? And that Crow wanted to be with us. I should also say the caveat is that this particular crow's foot was ethically sourced and prepared, you know, by me from a creature that had already passed. So no worries there for you vegans, etc. But yeah, Crow energy wanted to come into all of the piles at the beginning, but I didn't mention it in all the piles. And I think it's because it was a message specific to pile 1. You may be dealing with Crow mythology, with trickster energy. You may want to look into those things. I'm hearing Laughing Crow for some of you, which I know is an aspect of the Sundance medicine community. All of these things could apply. There's also a nod to an upcoming reading on this channel when I do the orange section of the spectrum, which I think is going to be this Sunday. You may be in the pile entitled Trick, right? Because we're covering tricksters. So that Crow thing is for you, and that's your first message. But trust me when I say that the remaining messages will not be self-promotion in any way. It's just that I had to say it because Crow was sort of flapping at me at the beginning of the tarot portion for this one. Okay, some of you have dyed your hair recently in a sort of lovely bright green colour. I don't know how to describe it other than to say green, but it's very nice. Looks good. Look into the energetic components around green. Look into what green means for different people, because I feel like there's a reason you were drawn to that colour in particular. It may be to do with green's relationship to the systemic in both health matters and environmental matters, right? Or even in systems, if you're a coder or anything like that, green may be relevant archetypally in those kinds of ways, sorry. There's also a link between green and the opening of the heart chakra. So if you guys have been looking for love or having relationship problems recently, that may be something to do with this green thing, or while you're working with green. Again, this isn't going to apply to everyone because it's a very general reading for a lot of people, but if you have dyed your hair green or you're wearing a green outfit or something like that, and I say that just as the light goes green, look into why, right? Look into what green is, what green means. I'm not going to go into its many meanings here. There is a colour reading you can book with me, or you can look at the green section of my spectrals when that comes around sort of January-ish. But I think this is more immediate, so I'm not going to recommend that directly. I'm going to say Google it, you know, look on your witchcraft Pinterest and stuff, look on your colour psychology, look into, if you're in a colour analysis kind of a thing, look into what your greens are and how they differ from other people's greens, and there is something in that. Also, the song that's come on is The Hunter, so for some of you it's like, I mean, green is associated with hunting, and there is a specific dynamic to the hunt, whether or not you agree with it ethically, that is a folkloric and fairy tale dynamic which is very important. So you might want to look into things like the wild hunt, if it's a kind of hunter's green, or if you associate green with hunting in any fashion, and that is pinging out for you. Okay, let's get rid of the greens. I'm hearing Zach Wild colour green as well, so you might want to look into that in terms of your beliefs about money and law of attraction stuff. Anyway, that's enough for the green, Spirit. I want something else. There is a sense, how do I say this? Your communications at the moment seem to be boomeranging back to you in a very strange fashion. Now, for some of you, this could be a an experience I very recently identify with, of having somebody copycat your phrasings, your interests, and sort of repeat stuff you've said to other people as if it's what they've said and things like that. In which case you might enjoy my conflict reading. And for others of you, this is just that you're putting stuff out there and then you're kind of hearing it back to yourself without it seeming to reach other people, right? It's almost like you're getting synchronistic feedback on a particular idea without having seen that idea come into any real fruition, or without gaining satisfaction from whatever it is that you intended with a particular statement. I hope that that's making sense for you. What is it about this boomerang effect then? It's the boomerang pattern that's the point of interest. So whether this is a conflict or whether this is just your communication, something that may also be a pattern for you at the moment is connections that boomerang. I mean, I like the term boomerang for, like, it's a bit scathing, but for an ex that always comes back when they're a bit hard up, you know, or somebody that always comes back around in your life, but kind of not necessarily out of the best of intentions, but just because they are a boomerang in some fashion. And if you're having that pattern recurring again and again, or you're hearing your own personality boomeranging back in a sort of, I want to say like a black echo, like a dodgy echo, like a dark mirror of self, where somebody's single white femaling you or imitating you or anything like that, there is something to the pattern of boomeranging that is broader. There is a need to examine your beliefs about having to return to the same cycles, the same people, the same things. It's almost like, and it's interesting with Pile 1's tarot being the 9th house, and the tarot always echoes into the channeled whether or not it was your tarot pile, right? So I'm not saying it is, but it's almost like, because that is the 9th and it's about explorative, expansive travel energy, seeing new things, speaking to new people, taking on new ideas that are completely alien to you and that will be important for your development. It's like your inability at the moment to move forward in that way is meaning that loops are a pattern with you. That you're stuck in a loop, perhaps a romantic loop, or that you're having yourself reflected back to you by people who don't have your best intentions at heart, or you're, like I say, in a communication feedback loop of, like, you're saying shit and it's not really going to where it's meant to, but you're hearing it back anyway, or you're getting an echo of it, but it's not coming to what it was intended to come to. There is a sense of that echoing in your vibration if you are part of my manifestation community, where it's like you don't believe that you can achieve your goals or your manifestation if you sort of leave the circles that you're in, or if you move forward in some way, or if you literally move, because that was the theme for Power 1. So there's a sense that you are obstructed, because no matter how well your techniques are going for bringing about your ideal life, and they may be, you know, they may be secular or atheist techniques, like just goal setting and reading self-help books, all the way over to high ceremonial ritual, right, with law of attraction somewhere in between. But whatever it is that you've been doing is restricted by the extent to which you're able to put yourself out there into completely new territory. And this is perhaps why you're getting echoes back from people within your experience who themselves cannot move on without emulating somebody else, right? Or without feeding back into the same ideas as their circle. For those of you who have had a copycat, that person they can't generate their own ideas, right? So they're taking yours and sort of reframing them as their new self. And in the same way, it's almost like you have a core self-concept belief that you can't generate newness, so you have to loop back to the same kinds of themes, the same kinds of people. You may even have, like, reconnected with an ex recently that you don't 100% vibe with, but you're like, this is the best I'm going to get. Or you may have sort of returned to a circle that in the past wasn't serving you, or gone back, for some I'm hearing even gone back to a school or a course or something like that which didn't feel right at the time and kind of resumed with that. And what I'm getting really strongly for this pile in a very insistent fashion from what I work with is, no, you need to be expanding beyond that and looking at something completely new. I'm getting this because it reflects my personal circumstances, but for those of you who are in the process of changing location, moving house, etc., and you're sort of waiting on a decision about somewhere you've applied for, the advice here is to look at something completely fresh, right? Not to have a backup because you can't manifest that, but perhaps to have a backup because there is something more ideal waiting, right? So take that if it's for you. Again, large group, so it won't be for everybody, but there is a sense within which you're waiting for a person or a place or a set of people that you're already very familiar with to like get back to you in order to start your life. And what's coming really strongly is it won't start until you let go of those things and just begin again. See that the cards are like scattering as I'm saying that. It's like, yeah. And with them scattering to the left as well, from my perspective, it's kind of a get back into your intuitive energy, get back into what you actually want. Stop wishing for what you think is accessible to you. Stop second guessing how the universe is going to bring things to you and sort of interfering with the process by trying to work out how it will happen. And instead just let go of what's not for you with the trust that something will be, right? Because I think there's like, now, I was watching a really good law of attraction sort of commentator, yesterday. And I will link it down below if I remember which video it was or what her name was. I can't for the life of me remember it now. But she was speaking about how if you have the true conviction of your spirituality, where you do believe you are a co-creator, you do believe that you have, that you can exert the force of will over reality in that sort of prayer-based way, then it's ridiculous to have a backup when you're manifesting. I heard this put in another fantastic way from Gordon White, who essentially explained to burn all your boats when you're magically asking for something, right? Anything that isn't that thing, cut off your ability to get back to it. And that's not me encouraging any of you to do anything risky or to make yourselves homeless or to make yourself hated within your particular crowd. It's just to say that if you know in your heart of hearts that you had something in reserve which may not have been your best option, the universe is inviting you to instead focus on your best option exclusively, right? And know that your best option may be beyond what it is that you've presently looked at, as with the housing example, okay? If you're waiting to hear from an iffy landlord about something that you're doing, maybe that's not going to be your landlord, dude. Maybe it's going to be an easier process going to somewhere that is instantly right for you, yeah? And again, it's just an example. It won't apply to everyone, but it's this thing of burn your boats. And I wish that I could remember how the girl yesterday had put it, because it was a fantastic video, but I'll link it down below. But yeah, there's this sense of like the way to stop everything looping back to you, the way to stop your feedback loop of your manifestations almost working out but kind of not quite, and M is for manifestation as well, right? May come up, I don't know. But the way to break the pattern is just to be like, fuck it, I'm out of this loop entirely, and I'm just going to trust that it's all right? I'm just going to step into the Fool energy, maybe even to the Magician energy if you identify as a magician or a witch or a peller or anything like that. But it's like, stand by that conviction. If you believe in that thing, then fucking do it. Close off all these safety options, right? You don't need the safety valve if you truly believe that it's going to work out for you. And again, that's not to encourage anybody to put their health at risk or to do anything that's going to put them in dire circumstance. It's just to say that you know deep down, if you've been holding yourself in a life that is kind of on reserve in case your dreams don't work out, right? And this is your message to say your dreams can fucking work out, but only if you give up on doing that. It may even be a pattern that you learnt in childhood from some kind of authority figure or whatever. You may have somebody around you who's constantly wanting you to have a backup plan, just in case things don't work out. And you may have taken on that mindset. My self-concept reading may be useful to you as well. But whatever it is, it's like the way to escape the loop is not to be in the loop and just to be like, none of that is completely right for me, or I wouldn't frame it as a reserve. I wouldn't frame it as a backup if it was my absolute dream. If you had your perfect ideal life, which in every way made you feel like you wanted to be in it in the moment, you know, the sort of thing you dream about as you're falling asleep, that life doesn't feel like a reserve energy. You see the difference? So yeah, I'm going to leave that with you. Anything else? Sorry, I'm just having to clear the energy because it's really hefty, guys. I feel like that's almost it. For some of you, I'm getting cat energy. So again, with the tricksters, again, with the citrine frivolity stuff. For some of you who have a cat, and citrine stones will be helpful if your cat hasn't been well. Although again, I would urge you to get veterinary treatment, etc. It's just that this will be a good supplement to that, right? And Creature Lives or Creature Lives is coming up next. So again, with the creature, right? Your cat may be called Creature for some of you. Please comment if it is. But yeah, there's something to do with cat energy, with bast, with playfulness, maybe even like a frivolity within athleticism, within things like, I want to say like gymnastics, yoga, Pilates, that kind of stuff could be really beneficial for getting you out of the doldrums if you have been feeling like shit. This sort of energy of getting into cat-like movements again is really positive for you. But I think, honestly, the main message for this pile was the boomerang thing, so I am going to leave it there. As I said with the tarot pile, if you found this particularly useful, there is a PayPal donation button. You can leave me a quid or a fiver. I'd really appreciate it because it's a very cold winter and this is my main source of income. But if that's not for you, then please do like, subscribe, share with any friends that you think would enjoy my readings, and I will see you soon. Pile 1. Pile 2! I'm being called to do your D12 first. Ooh, 4th house, okay. Nice. I have a lot of placements there. Some would say too many. M is 4. Don't look up my chart, guys, please. I feel like cumulatively the information that I've given about myself over this channel would enable someone to tap into my astrological chart, and I really don't want that to happen. M is 4, mirror. Interesting with that being in the 4th. Let's have a look at what your cards are. Ooh, is this the top one? Yeah. So there's a lot of cards coming out at once, which I feel like is an indication that there's a lot of information happening for you at once. You may be overwhelmed with the amount of communication you're getting or information in some way. If you're on a course, it might be that there's just like a lot coming at you at the minute, or if you're in employment and you're getting a lot of emails or something, there's something to do with that going on. But it's like, it's almost like, it's not TMI because it's not like too much information in the sense of giving away too much. It's more just like TMI in quantity, if that makes sense. There's just like too much coming at you. Okay, and 2, excellent, right. Do we have a clarifier? Yes. I need to split it, do I? Is that our one? Yeah. All right, wicked. So we got another one that's a 6-card reading in the end. Okay, so we've got a Tower, we've got an Ace of Swords, we've got a Page of Cups, a Page of Pentacles, a 2 of Pentacles, and for the clarifier we have a 10 of Wands. I'm just going to meditate on these and be back in a jiff. Hopefully you won't feel the cut. Alright, pal 2, I'm going to sit back for this one a little bit, but I am still here. Hello, this is my hand, so I hope that you can see everything fine. Yes, you can, wicked. So this is an interesting one. 4th house is sort of, usually it's familial situations. It can be a mother figure or a mother energy very strongly, but it could also be to do with whoever it is that you want to make family with, or just to do with family in the more general sense. Like, the phrase I'm getting is, I'm hearing Stitch saying Ohana, right? Doing this sort of chosen family thing, right? Tribe, as opposed to family that you grew up in. I certainly think like it's unlikely to be fatherly energy, because that would be a different house. And it's unlikely to be siblings directly, because one would think that would come up somewhere else as well. So if it is family, it's going to be maternal. So mother, grandmother, female caregiver. But if that's not the case, it's your family in terms of your built family, your own family, your partner, your children. Or if that doesn't resonate, this is just like your chosen family, your tribe, your close community. As I said in a previous intro, your, polygrouping on an anarchist barge, whatever works for you, right? It's just kind of your ohana. And I don't mean to appropriate that term. I am referencing the Disney movie. I have no idea of the true Hawaiian terminology. So if anybody is familiar with that, please comment down below and clarify. But whoever this pertains to, or whatever connections this is sort of about, it's very much a reading of like many different energies, many different elements coming into conflict. I want to say minor conflict. I think that in the recent past for you, there has been a tower moment, a moment of crisis, which should not necessarily have been a tower, right? It's not that something exploded. It's not that somebody's ill. It's not that you lost a job or a car or anything like that. I think that your tower was that somebody around you was truthful in a way that you didn't expect, with this Ace of Swords coming up here. This may be somebody, for many of you, that you're interested in having a family with. But again, the sort of fourth house stuff more broadly applies. So take it as it resonates, because I'm reading for, anywhere between 10 versus thousands of people with this reading. And I need to be as general as possible so that everyone gets the best out of it. But what I will say is that they gave you this truth. And I think that the page in this, or the Page of Cups, sorry, is in reference to them. I think they presented you with the truth about something in quite an innocent way, potentially a way that was relatively uncensored, that came across as a little bit naive. They might be somebody who's quite childlike or imaginative, but that doesn't have to resonate. Either way, they were sort of giving you an emotional perspective of what they see to be true, which I think came across to you as a little bit, if not immature, then it was only a fraction of the complete picture, and you were very aware of that. But I think that it being their truth was a real crisis moment for you, because I don't think you realise that they saw things quite that way. I hope this is making sense. And I don't want to, for some of you it is like a love confession or something, and you're like, oh shit, well, I didn't realise that you felt romantically or whatever. And that's a crisis moment for reasons that we'll sort of discuss in a minute. But for many of you, it's not that, and it's just a piece of information said in a very casual fashion, potentially by one of your children for some of you, that is, it clues you in as to where that person's coming from in a fashion that you just weren't prepared for, and which throws your own worldview a little bit for a loop. So if you feel comfortable commenting what that is, I'd be really interested to know how it resonates. I mean, obviously I know what it is because I just explained it, but what I'm getting at is that it will resonate very differently for many of you. And like I say, for some I'm getting that someone confessed feelings. For others, it's that your child just said something offhand about the family dynamic or about school or something that you didn't realise was true for them, and it's sort of thrown you into a spiral. Or, it could also be that somebody else in the family or in your ahana, your chosen family, has just told you their perspective on life in a way that was very flippant, very sort of romantic or sentimental, or sort of pertaining to those kinds of subjects. And it was so far from your own worldview, or what you suspect to be your own worldview, that it threw you. right? Being thrown is a big thing in this. I now want to bring in that the subject of your reading is mirror, right? My feeling is that whatever this information was giving back to you, part of the reason that it's thrown you is that it's a mirror of your own worldview or where you were at a particular time, or indeed your current behaviour, right? It's, again, you may find my Mirrored Souls reading very useful, whether it be the free version for soulmates or the paid version for anybody else in your life that you have a key connection with. But there is a sense in which this interaction, no matter how minor or how flippantly said by the person, is mirroring back to you a truth about yourself or your self-concept or your behaviour that is something you needed to hear. The song at the moment is Bedazzled Fingernails. So this could be that it's coming from somebody who has just that, who does their nails in a fancy way. But the image I was actually getting was, with the word fingernails, I was seeing the hands of a child, maybe sort of grabbing onto an adult hand and then saying something about the circumstances which was disturbing to the adult, or which was not what the adult expected to hear. So again, for some of you that will resonate. I'd really love to know if it did, even if you don't feel comfortable describing the exact circumstances. Just if the fingernails thing is true, comment a tiny hand below, and then I know that that's hit for some of you, right? But yeah, whatever it is, this is mirroring something back to you. So I want to say, if you are a caregiver, this could be mirroring your beliefs at that age, and that's somehow imprinted onto the person that you're looking after. And if that's not true for you, I want to say that something about your current perspective is exactly, what this person was sort of saying about theirs. For some of you, it's like because it's a Page of Cups, this is a really hopeful, imaginative, optimistic energy. They could be mirroring back to you an aspect of yourself that you lost. Maybe you used to be hopeful about something in particular, or you used to think in that sort of childlike way, and it's niggling you that they do because you don't feel that you do anymore, right? But whatever it is, just know that there is an aspect of mirroring here, and that's why it's coming up. It's not just to acknowledge, oh wow, this was a statement that sort of threw you in a way that was unexpected, because you already know that. The sparrow is on, and obviously a sparrow is a tiny bird, right? You knew that this wasn't a tiny thing, even if it started out that way. But also, like, I think you're hearing this specifically from me with the word mirror, because you need to look into mirroring, okay? You need to look into your shadow self-concept, what it is that you believe is true about the world or the people around you, and how that might either rub off on the people around you or invite in the kinds of circumstances that you believe will be the case. For some of you, you picked my pile 1 channeled message. So this is to do with your manifestations and the people around you doing the kind of, I know it's a bit of a dodgy term, and I'll link a video of someone who explains it better, but there's sort of everyone is you pushed out energy, right? Of people mirroring back to you your beliefs about what it is that you can achieve. That won't resonate for all, but I feel called to say it. What I want to address sort of after the point that we've acknowledged that this is a mirror is this Page of Pentacles figure being you, right? Notice that the Page of Cups is looking towards them, is offering their trusting and very optimistic and very hopeful statement of complete innocence in a way that just imagines that the Page of Pentacles will accept it. And instead the Page of Pentacles is looking out of the reading into the camera at you. This is almost like you looking back through the mirror of the lens to yourself. And as a film fan, there is a large precedent for people viewing cameras as mirrors or as dark mirrors, or mirror being a kind of voyeuristic camera-like thing within film history. So look into that if you're interested. It's a fascinating realm of study. But what I'm getting at really is that, like, you are mirroring you very directly with this page figure. You don't have to identify as somebody who has earthly placements. I think that the thing that's leaping out with it being pentacles is that this page is looking at you instead of looking at the person who gave this statement, and is holding up their work life, represented by the coin, and saying, yeah, but this though. So if this is an optimism or a hope that you've disagreed with in some fashion that's being mirrored back to you, I think that the reason that you no longer believe what you used to believe is to do with your preoccupation with work, with career, with security, with financial benefit. For some of you, with the security of the body and with your health. I think basically you've come into a time period where your needs have been so immediate that you've lost the perspective with which you would normally deal with such a statement, right? I know it's a very convoluted grammatical way to say this, so I do apologise, but I think essentially they're looking to you with this thing of like, hey, I think this thing, and it's my objective truth, right? And you're saying, not looking at this because work. And that may even be like an avoidance mechanism, but it may also be just because you are so preoccupied with immediacies that you don't have the time to sort of analyse this, or you didn't until this statement. For those of you who are caregivers, it may be that taking care of the household at this time has been such an urgent need that you've perhaps forgotten about the thoughts and feelings and truths of those under your care, and that's what's pushed you out of yourself in this fourth house mirror way. But in either case, I think with the clarifier being the 10 of Wands as well, there's a sense of burden with you. There's a sense of having too many commitments going on at one time to really be able to engage with this or take this in. That's not to say you didn't hear it, because if you didn't hear it, there wouldn't be a major arcana describing it to start off with. I think it's very much gone in, but I don't think you necessarily came up with a response in the moment that was as in-depth as that requires, because you are focusing on, I don't even want to say the most important things, but the most immediate things, right? I'm thinking of the sort of Eisenhower matrix way of prioritizing things, and you have been dealing with the urgent sector, not the important sector. And I think perhaps you've had a rude awakening as to what is important rather than being urgent, and those two things are very distinct. I will link the Eisenhower matrix below if you're not familiar with it. I hope I remember the right name for that, but it is useful if you're prioritizing stuff. Speaking of prioritizing, the sort of underbelly of the reading, underneath this overarching issue of this tower moment, is juggling. It's sort of flitting between different things, managing different aspects of your life. The song about to come on is Tread Lightly, so it's treading lightly with certain individuals, with certain subjects, with employment even, making sure that you're in everybody's good books, and kind of managing the information that's just come in a way that is beneficial for all parties, but with your own sort of goals in mind. And I think maybe part of the reason it's come up as a mirror is that you haven't had your goals in mind. I think you thought about this person whose truth has been expressed, be they romantic, familial or other. I think you very much thought about the burdens you're carrying and maybe your pentacles energy or work or health or whatever it is that's most urgent for you, most immediate. But I don't see in the latter part of this reading any real passion, you know? There's a Wands card, which should represent passion, but in this case it's one of burden. It's one of being overwhelmed, having too many projects to really think about any of them. Some of my spectral readings may resonate if you're drawn to that, but there's definitely a sense within which, like, you feel you can't address this truth to the extent that it is required, sort of from an ethical perspective, because you are too busy juggling other things in a very passionless way. And I think in a way, this whole issue has come about to show you that your existence as of late has been quite passionless, has been quite disconnected from the familial, from your ohana, from your tribe, from the people most important to you. It's been very much about the function of your work, your health, your housing, your money, right? It's been very going through the motions, as well as sort of juggling separate things. And the page, as well as inviting you to acknowledge this truth of theirs, in a broader sense, is asking you to acknowledge the absence of your own page qualities, your own childlike nature, your own imaginative nature. Maybe if you did get the channeled for pile 1, this is again a call to examine why it was that you wanted to do these things in the first place before they got so busy. Because my feeling is that you're ignoring your passions, you're ignoring your emotions, you're facing the camera rather than the information coming in a way that is literally and figuratively counterintuitive to where you started out. And that is your mirror. For those of you who would like a sort of familial setup in the traditional nuclear sense or something like it, you know, an LGBT friendly version maybe, or something adjacent or similar, I don't think you're going to get to that place doing all this juggling of practical stuff that you've been doing without integrating some of your kind of inner child's thoughts, some of your daydreams, some of your dreams at night, for those who don't have the opportunity to daydream at all. There's a sense of like, don't kill off the voice of the naive being inside of you that wanted you to do this so that it could have a good time, and not because it was a sort of result of urgency or a way to function. There was a bigger dream, is what I want to say. And yes, this truth on the surface of it may present the need of someone close to you, or something that's a bit shocking, or whatever it is, in a way that you see has niggled you on that level, which I would say is relatively surface. But deep beneath that, and we're always going beneath with Cups energy in the centre, there is a sense that you're being called to sort of look at your relationship to your life in a broader way. You're being called to look in the mirror at who you are presently, not who you think you'll be if you just manage this next 5 projects, and if you manage to fund the house, and if you take care of your kids sufficiently that they get through the next 3 grades, or whatever it is, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about the person in the mirror today, right now. In fact, I'm almost being called to say, like, pause this reading, go and look in the fucking bathroom mirror, wherever you are, and give an honest assessment of yourself and what your priorities have been. And I'm not saying that in a way to chastise you or to reprimand you for where your priorities have been at, because I feel for many of you that they've been in a place of urgency out of necessity. Times is hard, right? I know just as much as any of you. But I think that this is your pause and an invitation to reevaluation. If this was a love offering, have you shut the possibility of love completely out of your life? And that's why you don't want to think about it really yet. And that's why you're too busy with work. If this was a child saying that, you know, they think this thing about something, or they're having a rough time in this area, where can you tap into your own inner child in order to help this being, but also help yourself? Where is that that child's perspective of the world that you're currently in actually mirroring your own circumstances right here, right now as an adult? Because some of these issues carry through into adulthood, particularly if they came from afar, if they came from your own familial patterning and environment growing up. If it's neither of those things, I just think that the truth that you've been given, which has upset you more than you thought, has upset you because it's a call to reassess, to look in the mirror. I'm hearing the song Man in the Mirror. I know that for many people, Michael Jackson is problematic, but if you are still in the mode where you're able to listen to his music, I would highly recommend listening to the song and just sort of thinking it over, even if it feels cheesy for you. But there is something here about looking in the mirror and looking at family and whatever that means to you at the moment and saying, how can I be more in line with this? And if you're mad at me for saying that because you feel powerless and you feel like your circumstances are too urgent to consider it, then that is exactly what I'm getting at, right? Especially if you're seeing this live and we're coming into the holiday period. I feel like any pause that you're given in this time, any time off work or away from the things that normally pressure you, any minute that you get to yourself, are for kind of planning how it's going to be different in 2023 and how you're going to incorporate more of what you wanted from this and less of what you eventually sort of fell into the habit of. The Mother Load is the song at the moment. So for many of you, patterning and beliefs from your mother or a statement from your mother is really important for this. Okay, I hope that was useful, pile 2. If you'd like to book privately with me to get more detail on this, if you've sort of tapped into it and want to explore it in a bigger way, that is absolutely a possibility. The link will be down below. If you'd like to donate to me to help me through my 10 of Wands hurdles and my juggling of things, I would really appreciate that as well. A quid, a fiver is absolutely fine. But if neither of those feel appropriate or you're not able to give financially at this time, please do like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, share with a friend, comment down below what your situation is and we can have a sort of informal chat about what to do next. But I hope that you're all right. I hope that this truth is not too earth-shattering and that you realise that I'm coming to you from a place of saying reassessment is the beginning of repair. And I hope you have a beautiful Christmas period, no matter what holidays you celebrate or who you celebrate with. And that you're able to look in the mirror in the future with a little more confidence than you're having right now. Take care. Pile 2, the first thing to say is that because of the subject of the tarot reading, if you have a lot of 4th house placements, or if you are somebody who really loves Lilo and Stitch, or you're a native to Hawaii, this is your correct pile. That doesn't mean that the tarot reading is necessarily for you if you weren't drawn to it, but it does mean you're in the right place now. So that's the first sort of message to get off my chest before we really begin channeling. Excuse me while I just readjust my microphone. There we go, that should be a little bit better. There's something with that, because I was having to kind of hold it in place. Some of you have made some kind of, what is it? It's like you're reserving something or you're fixing something and being like, stay there because otherwise it's not going to work out. For some of you, like there's a person that you don't want to move on with a particular thing, be that a love interest or someone at work that you're like, please stay on this project and don't notice this thing. But there's a sense of like holding somebody where they are. Like I'm getting an image, it's really like disturbing, but I'm getting a picture in my head of like 2 kids that have been play fighting and one of them is like holding the other down, like by the neck, like, no, you will stay there. And I don't mean that in a horrible way. It's just, I'm seeing like play fighting siblings or something. So that may, for those of you who are parents, if you came from Pile 2's tarot, like that may be a thing where you're seeing kids like holding each other down or like playing at wrestling or something. But yeah, there's a sense that you're like holding something in a fixed position because you're afraid of what will happen if that person or that thing moves on or discovers that the world has moved on or something along those kinds of lines. I hope that makes any kind of sense, but that's my first message. What about that, Spirit? I'm just going to check the camera's all right. Okay, I'm getting 7th house stuff in my head. So like for many of you, this is in terms of a relationship, you're hoping that somebody else will hold on, will wait for you. And will they? What's going on with that? I'm getting like pins and needles in my hand, and that is always to me a call to action thing. So what I want to say, Pile 2, is that if you are waiting for somebody or you're waiting for yourself to be done with a particular relationship or a particular healing process, or you're just in some way energetically asking for somebody to hold on, don't do this quite yet, wait for me, please. The message that I'm getting is that it's not up to them to sort of hold out for you, and that action needs to be taken at your end. And this is quite immediate. So for those of you who are, I dare say, in like a twin flame or a soulmate connection, again, you may find relevant readings elsewhere on this channel and a perspective on those things that is not the common one on YouTube, I will say. But there's a sense that like you asking somebody to kind of not date around and wait for you, or you asking somebody to stay in place for you, or something like that, is not really a reasonable request at this time, and you would be better directly approaching this person and just expressing yourself. For both your sort of fortune and for theirs, I think like if you're like, please hold on, please wait, now is the time to act. And I'm not saying that in a way to scare any of you who, you know, for some of you I'm hearing like you're in a rehabilitation process, or your placement is somewhere far from this person, or something like that, where you are genuinely held up and you're kind of wishing that this person will still be there when you get back, or when you recover fully, or whatever it is. I'm not saying that they won't be there. What I am saying is that there needs to be some kind of movement at your end, and then it's not just them doing the emotional or spiritual legwork in that sense, right? It's not on them to reserve a place for you if they're not sure of what it is that you're going to offer in return, is what I want to say. Now, if it's a work connection or a project or something like that, a similar kind of thing is applying here. I want to say that like if you're wanting somebody to hold off on something so that something you've done is not discovered, or so that you get to work with them on a thing or whatever it is, your best approach at the moment, I'm afraid, is honesty. Once more, round the sun has come up as well. So for some of you, this is literally like you're kind of, it's something to do with like within a year. Like you'll have something finished this year, or by next year you'll be completely ready to collaborate with a person or to do this project or whatever it is. Like, please just wait, please hold off. But again, a year is a long time, my dudes, especially energetically. A lot can change for somebody within a year. And whilst I'm not saying that that person will go down a different path, what I am saying is that if you're hearing this message, particularly if you're hearing it live, there is an immediate need from your end to act like the person that already has what it is that you want, or to communicate with this person directly about that thing. So if it's, please, I'm almost done with these studies, hold off and let me apply for the project, perhaps the best thing to do is actually act like you're within the project now, or apply for it now, and then defer, right? If it's a case of a relationship and it's like, please just give me a year to sort all this bullshit out that I've been in, that's not a reasonable request. And I think the pull is to at least communicate to this person, listen, I'm struggling with these things, I'm going through this stuff, being completely honest, what I want at the end of it is you, how do you feel? Because I think the phrase I'm hearing is your reservation is not reasonable, right? And I mean reservation in terms of holding a space for something, not in terms of having reservations. Although if you do have reservations about forward movement at this time, pile one's tarot may be for you, okay? Yeah, so that's my first message, is like, you can ask somebody to hold the door or to hold on what they're doing. And sometimes that's a reasonable thing and sometimes it's not. But without right action at your end, even if that's like mostly energetic action or mostly private action, I'm afraid It's not that you're not going to get the results that you want, it's that you're crossing a particular ethical boundary, which is not the best path for you. And you would be better being directly communicative or getting the most done that you possibly can, despite what the situation appears like. So I hope any of that makes sense. Right. So Chimes at Midnight is on, and I'm thinking instantly of Orson Welles, and I'm thinking of somebody in your immediate environment who has been... I'm going to take my hand away while I speak about this because it's coming through quite well. I want to say there's somebody around you who's been quite pompous, been quite arrogant. And because it's Orson Welles in my head, I don't think that this person's station that sort of made them arrogant in the first place is disproportionate to their ability. I think they are perhaps a leader or in a particular position of privilege, even in an emotional sense. They may be just very well respected. And I think that respect is earned. But what I want to say is that they've been not so great in their behaviour towards you as a result of them taking for granted this position that they have. So they could be somebody who's very far along in their career and they've been quite rude. They could be somebody that's a bit more socially adept than you and they've sort of taken it for granted that will always be, that everyone will always be accessible to them, and they've been inappropriate with you in some way. It's just coming across as like somebody saying or doing something quite arrogant, and it's not actually because it's not proportionate behaviour for where they stand, because I think they're doing very well in life. I think they're an alright person, but I think that from an ethical perspective they've upset you and that wasn't a correct thing for them to do. So what do we want to say about that? What I'm hearing is that the spiritual repercussions of this will be taken care of. So if you feel slighted, this could go several ways, right? So I'm just going to give examples. If you feel slighted by somebody you perceive as arrogant, but it turns out actually that you've fucked them over, the spiritual repercussions are about to come your way. If you feel slighted by somebody who is genuinely being arrogant with you and they behaved inappropriately, they are about to receive spiritual repercussion. And by that, I don't mean the K word. I mean that whatever it is that's meant to take them down their path, in accordance with how they've acted, is going to happen. And that may mean that they sort of divert from where you are, or you divert from where they are, or it may mean you come up together and there's a situation where it's directly communicated how you felt, right? But whatever is kind of meant to happen with this, for whoever was the slighter versus slightee, to receive their correct treatment for everybody's best development, shall we say, that is about to happen. So if you're watching this and you're calling somebody else arrogant, and then the week after you see this, a load of dodgy shit happens to you, I'm sorry to say that this is your sign that perhaps it wasn't them being arrogant. And if you're instead watching this and you know that somebody else has behaved inappropriately, or you feel that, you know, there's a little bit on both sides, but mostly they've been kind of a dick, then this is my reassurance from what I work with to say, this is seen, this is absolutely acknowledged, we are on your team, and you will soon see a change in this person's circumstances which reflect what you've experienced, okay? The other thing that I'm hearing from this is that if you're a bit curse happy, and for more information on what a curse actually entails, I would advise you to watch my conflict reading with, I think it's the Dark Crystal Pile, because curses can just be bad-mouthing somebody to everyone you know, right? But if you are a bit curse happy, if you want to speak about somebody negatively, or, you know, you run the full sort of spectrum from that over into direct malefica and witchcraft against them, etc., takes all sorts on my channel, and welcome, and, you know, I'm glad to have practitioners here. But what I want to say is, like, resist the urge to either act on that or take it any further if you've already acted on it, because I think when we're speaking about spiritual repercussion and then somebody's advising you not to do curse work, you get the sense of what I'm getting at, right? So if you've been bad-mouthing somebody who has been arrogant, maybe give it a rest, because you're not doing your own fortune any favour by focusing on a negative manifestation that you don't want to attract more of, and B, sort of firing a very, very low level form of malefica at a person by chatting shit about them, right? That's just for some of you. It's not going to apply to everybody, because I know many of you are wonderful eggs who would never speak ill of anybody around you, no matter what their behaviour. And as always in these kinds of situations, my best advice is you first try to communicate openly and calmly with the person, and then if they don't change their behaviour at all, you remove yourself from the situation, and that tends to be something which resolves the dynamic, because people show themselves over time, right? But if you do find yourself tangled in a bit of a thicker web than that, then asleep in the deep has just come on, and what I say is don't sleep on your own capacity for resentment, for reactivity. That's not to say that the emotions that you're feeling weren't justified or aren't justified. You can absolutely be angry and process anger. You can absolutely be sad, grieving, whatever it is that you're feeling, and process that in your own way with your own spiritual practice. But what I will say is, don't neglect the shadow part of you that wants to fire that energy back at somebody else. And again, the Orson Welles example that started all of this off, which, I mean, many of you won't know who Orson Welles is, but that kind of energy for me is somebody I truly respect, and I feel like whoever this pertains to, they are very respected. So it's like a thing of be careful there, and I don't mean that in a threatening way. I mean it in a ensure that your energy and efforts are put into you and not into trying to defame somebody who's already winning or already in a position that they're not going to easily be shoved out of, right? That said, the spiritual repercussions are coming. It's just that you may not be the person to sort of set off that chain. I think the moral of the story is that spirit or universe or whatever it is that you believe I'm communicating with is dealing with it, and it's kind of not your job, right? Yeah, that's as much as I want to say on that. Excuse me, I just lost my mic again. So some of you are feeling a little bit powerless. You feel like that's me shutting down your ability to communicate about this thing. I'm not saying don't speak about your circumstances if they've been particularly distressing. You can absolutely talk to a friend confidentially about what's happened to you. Maybe cry on someone's shoulder if you need to. But what I am saying is there's a big difference between that and resentment or revenge energy. And again, conflict reading pile 3 if this is something that's hitting home, okay? Right, what else? I'm hearing the phrase high tea. What's that about? Some of you are having high tea, some of you are drinking a cuppa, some of you are eating like salmon and cream cheese sandwiches or cucumber sandwiches or something like that, and that's your nod that you're in the right place, even if you sort of were a bit on the fence. But for others, what is high tea, Spirit? What's that to do with? Right, there is an elevation of lifestyle that you're after, pal, too, and you don't feel... you feel it's disingenuous for you to ask for it. What I'm seeing is a bunch of people sat around with Marie Antoinette wigs, doing the let them eat cake, high tea, fancy thing, and a sort of everyday person or a normal person walking into that room in plain clothes, you know, potentially from our time period, and sitting down trying to blend in. It's like the aspiration is to have tea with all of these very noble lords and ladies and enjoy the luxury of that lifestyle financially and socially. But then the feeling is one of being a complete outsider within that room. And as you can imagine, with the imagery I'm seeing, the person who is not in the fancy French wig looks very, they're hunching over, their posture is terrible, they're feeling very sort of, just their energy is a bit closed down. They feel a bit mumbly, a bit sort of not themselves. Now, you may not be somebody who jives with that kind of vibe at all, but what I'm getting at here is that there is something that you're aspiring to where you feel like an alien in those circumstances, but you keep wishing for them. So it's almost like you've gotten into the fancy club, but now you're in there, you're not behaving like you because it's too big, right? It's too much for you. Or you managed to manifest the perfect relationship, but now you're in it, you don't feel good enough for it, so you're pushing the person away. Or whatever it is. It's along those lines. Perhaps some of you managed to get a job, I'm hearing, that was like really, you thought it was outside of your realm of qualification, and you managed to succeed in passing through the interview process, but now you're kind of there in the office and you're stuttering like the guy with the stapler in Office Space because it's like, this is too much. I don't know how to handle this now I'm in it. Now I've got what I want. I don't know how to integrate it. So what's the message with that, guys? The colour periwinkle may be relevant. It's a sort of, it's in the blue-violet part of the spectrum. So again, with my spectral readings, if you're not already subscribed, but there's something, with periwinkle, it's like a marriage of the descent into the self and into the dreamscape and the unconscious, with one's spiritual ideas, goals, and also with the idea of regality. Purple is the royal colour, so it's like you dream about being a royal, but then when you are one, you're acting like a peasant. I don't want to sound classist, because I'm really not. I'm from a very working class background and town, but that's what's coming across to me. It's like you've made it with the royals, but now you feel more like one of the peasantry. And the message here is to work with the colour periwinkle on that until you feel more royal. Periwinkle often in sort of paint colours is called royal blue. Certainly in sort of French colours anyway. And again with the French and the Marie Antoinette and stuff. But there's a sense of feeling like an outsider with a situation that you thought would go well. Some of you, periwinkle coloured crystals like agates and things would be really good for this as well. If I remember, I will link down below what that particular colour of agate means, because obviously agates have a lot of different interpretations. But yeah, it's this thing of basically examine why it is that now you've got what you wanted, you don't feel good enough for it. Because if it wasn't destined for you, my dude, you wouldn't have been able to manifest it. That's the truth of this. And for those of you who jived with the resentment stuff I was saying earlier, and you maybe feel that somebody else has boots too big for their station or whatever, the same is true for them, right? If this wasn't their particular path, they wouldn't have been able to get to it. So I think that's a twofold message. It's, do you believe that what you want is for you? And if you do, and you've managed to draw in circumstances that are fantastic, then act like you belong with them, right? Fake it till you make it. Act like you fucking belong there, because on some level, especially spiritually, you absolutely do, or it wouldn't be happening. And the other message, the sort of more low-key, shifty message for those of you doing shadow work, is that you have resentment about how somebody else got to a particular position, whether it's, you know, financial, romantic, professional, whatever it is that you feel a bit resentful of, and that they're arrogant in that position. But if that wasn't meant for them, they wouldn't be there. So your job is to figure out what is instead meant for you. What is your niche, right? And I think this relates to another pile, but I can't for the life of me think which it was. So just go for whatever you're drawn to, guys. I want to say that's it for your... Is there anything a bit more mundane? If you're drying your washing in your room... This is really mundane. If you're drying your washing in your room, give it a quick spritz with some perfume or Febreze or something, or something like that. or find another way to dry it, because for some of you, if you're in a cold climate and you're hanging washing indoors, it's going to smell a bit stale. I know that's like a really random message to get from tarot, but I've got a lot of different viewers with different lifestyles, so it's there. You know, some of you are driving Ferraris, some of you are drying your underpants on the radiator. You do you, boo. I love you either way, but that's a message for some. I don't think it's a broader metaphor. I think it's quite literal. Also, the next song is Aunt Lisa, so some of you may have an Aunt Lisa, or an Aunt Lisa may be relevant, or maybe you're watching The Simpsons sort of in between this reading and whatever it is that you're doing, in which case, confirmation, hi, how you doing? But that is it for Pile 2's channeled. If you do feel drawn to a different tarot reading, please do check that out as well. If you'd like to book privately with me, that is available to you in the links down below, as is a donation button if you'd like to get me through this hard winter, because this is my sole income. If neither of those things are appropriate or affordable, then please do like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. Pass this reading to anybody who you feel would benefit from Lucky Dip readings. Compare, contrast with your friends as to what piles they get, etc. And I think I said it at the beginning, but if you want to comment any keywords for future readings down below, just state your letter and is for, and then your word of choice. And if you see a heart by it, I've added it to the pool. All right? Take care. Pile 3. M is for... Da, 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 da. Malefica. Right. Strong pull to say that you may have been in the channeled for Pile 2. There was a specific message for somebody who is a bit curse happy at the moment. Also, if you're not drawn to that, but you do want to get further info and this reading doesn't fully cover your question, then I'm prompted to say look at Pile 3 of my conflict reading, because that may also be for you in terms of speaking about curses, malefica, etc. You've picked 2 words, so I'm going to take them both. Underneath malefica, M is for marriage. That's a very interesting combination, no? I think we're going to get a very specific reading. So let's see what house you're in. You're in the 11th. Right, okay. I already see some of the themes we're dealing with. That's your first card. There we go. Yep. Called it. Called that shit. I'll enlighten you in a minute, Pile 3. I promise you. Right, yep. Wow. For some of you, this is someone I know very specifically, and it's a bit of a call out, so sorry. But I say for some of you, for one of you, this is someone I know. But I love you anyway, and I wish you well, I promise. Okay. I'm just going to meditate on these cards for a moment. This wants to be a clarifier, and we will get back to you. We will get back to you? Have you guys been leaving phone messages all day, or you're like doing secretarial work? Because I went completely into autopilot then, and I was like, sorry, we're just engaged at the moment, get back to you later. I haven't even been in a job like that for absolute years. Maybe like looking at a decade since I did anything like that with phone answering, so I'm definitely picking that up from somewhere, guys. Yeah, that is quite funny. But what I meant to say is, I will meditate on these cards, and hopefully you won't feel the cut, but I'll be back in a jiff. Right, Pile 3. This could go in one of 2 directions, and if you did resonate with Pile 2 as being one of your potential picks for the channeled message, then the first interpretation is definitely going to be for you. If not, hang in there, and I will cover you afterwards, and it's a slightly happier, well, not necessarily happier, but it's a less bollocky reading, right? I'm not going to tell you off. In either case, we're speaking today about something to do with a friendship dynamic between you and somebody else regarding a partnership, a marriage, a relationship, something along those lines. I'm going to speak first to somebody who is potentially jealous of somebody's situation or station regarding union, marriage, relationships, happiness with another person. Now, I'm saying this, and it may or may not be a thing that you've acknowledged in yourself, right? So if you've had a recent fallout with a friend, or a bit of a I wanted to say a quibbly niggle, but if you've been with somebody you normally get on with, and you've found yourself to be a little bit snippy with them, or something they did irritated you and you guys got into like a mini spat, I'm here to tell you that the root of that is actually that I think there's some envy coming from your end about their situation in terms of their relationship or their household situation. The reason that marriage is coming up in a friendship reading is that sort of jealousy about what I'll call a marriage situation, but it doesn't have to be a marriage, right? This person could be single and you're just a little bit envious of how it is that they relate to people that could potentially be a partner, or even how they relate to people that were formerly your partners or that you would like to be with, you know, crushes, etc. But the reason Malefica is coming up as a word, and the reason it was your first word, is because, as emphasised in pile 3 of my conflict reading, thinking ill of somebody repeatedly, ruminating on that thought, and or bad-mouthing them to others as a result of a kind of resentment, is a form of curse work. For those of you who don't know, the word Malefica means like cursing with magic. It's a form of craft which is putting a curse on somebody, and I don't want to panic you when I say that, because I don't think, for most of you, I don't think this is a full-on curse in either direction. I think that when we speak about Malefica, we're talking about what your intentions towards somebody else are, and whether they're very honourable, or whether actually, if somebody tripped over and fell flat on their face, you'd smile before you helped them up, right? Because if that's the case, then I'm sorry, but you've got some envy and resentment and shadow work to do there, right? And I don't like that attitude, quite frankly. I know we all struggle with it at different times, and particularly if you've been mistreated, and M is for mistreatment, right? And I get that. I've had a recent thing of that myself, where some very unjust things happened, and I wouldn't be averse to this person getting their comeuppance or getting exposed in some way, but frankly, I don't like that tendency within myself, and neither should you, pile 3. So if there is somebody that you've been a bit snippy with, that maybe has a situation that you're a little bit jealous of, or that you think, why is it that they've landed themselves in that position and not me? This is a reading to call you out and say that those kinds of things, when they're expressed verbally, either just to yourself while you're chatting to yourself around the house, or to close friends or family or whatever it is, they count as a curse, a very minor curse, right? And it doesn't mean that that person's going to be struck by lightning or suddenly get a terrible disease or something like that. That's not what we're talking about. But everything is an energetic exchange. And where we offer good thoughts and good words to and about people is, you know, we can easily sort of categorize that energy as being positive, right? If you were in a conversation about a friend and you said, oh yeah, I really like so-and-so, they're really friendly, or they're really good at this thing, or they're really beautiful, we can very easily translate that that's a good use of your energy, that is something that could energetically benefit them. It could benefit their reputation via the friend that you're speaking to, or it could just be like a goodwill put out into there, which might have a butterfly effect on their life, depending on what you believe, correct? So if we can say that that's true, I'm sorry, but the opposite is also true. So if you're meeting with a friend or a family member or even a partner, and you're using that time to put down somebody else, or to say that you think they're all right, but you're a little bit worried about them because of such and such, that is kind of none of your business, or you're using that time explicitly to say, well, they have this thing, but I don't know why they got it and not me, or, you know, they're doing this thing and I really don't agree with it, and I think they're actually not worthy of it, or they're being a piece of shit, or whatever it is that you're saying, right? Then those things, in the same way that the goodwill energy was putting stuff out there, those things are also putting stuff out there, right? Your person may be very well guarded. They may not feel the effects of your statements ever. They may be somebody who has the wherewithal to cut off from you if they're feeling that energy coming from you. Or indeed, they may just be somebody for whom that energetic treatment is fairly minor and it doesn't impinge upon them because they're well warded, or they have a higher vibration than you in the way that they operate, or they're just, going about life in quite a protected way. So I don't want you, if you have spoken ill of somebody and you now regret it, I don't want you to feel that you've put a curse on your friend and to send that idea out into the universe either. What I'm instead getting at is those of you for whom you think it's okay to gossip, or you think it's okay to badmouth somebody to other people, this is your call out, because it's fucking not, right? And I'm increasingly aware of the border between the 11th and the 12th house, because you've got the 11th house. The 12th house being one of enemies and the 11th being one of friends, right? So it's like, if the shoe was on the other foot, how much would this person, this friend or acquaintance, need to talk about you to other people for you to consider them to be an enemy, right? And that can sometimes be a very educational thing when we flip the situation and flip the kinds of things we've been saying, even if we framed them as concern, or even if we framed them as just like an expression of personal injustice, or whatever it is that we're using to disguise our malefica, or put it in a pretty package with a bow. I would say that if this is coming up for you, and if you do, like I say, if you are associated with Pile 2's channeled, and therefore with this aspect of this reading, then you have been sending out malefica, my dude, and it's not cool. The song at the moment is Halloween, which makes me think that this could be a situation that's been related to Halloween, if you're seeing this live, or has intensified around that time, or has something to do with the beginning of the holiday season for people, or someone who is a bit Halloweeny. Maybe you're a bit Halloweeny. But let's get into the cards more specifically and sort of hone in on what I'm getting at. And then I promise you that if you are waiting for the other interpretation of this pile, I will get to you as well. So Queen of Pentacles is somebody who's very stable, very secure, perhaps financially well off. Perhaps they're living their best soft life, or they just seem to you to be in a position of material privilege compared to where you're at. This is somebody who has mastery within their home environment, potentially somebody who's very good with animals, or very sort of well respected within a family unit. And I think that with this being the overarching energy, this is the person that you've been directing your malefica towards. Recent past is the energy of the star or the astrologer. So for some of you, this person is an astrologer. Hi. For others of you, this person just has a star quality that, like I say, rubs up against your idea of competing for certain resources, be they friends or potential romantic partners. And that is what has caused you to feel a bit envious, a bit jealous, and perhaps to try and emulate their star quality in some way if the copycat portion of Pile 2's channeled fits. But then the sort of middle energy is one of defensiveness. Now, I think in your case, this is because this person is low-key aware that they have to defend against this aspect of you. If this is your bestie or something, I don't think that this means that they're any less fond of you. I think it's just an indication that they're picking up on your shit, right? Diamond in the Witch House is the song that's come on, and I'm thinking of the Guillermo del Toro series that was released this Halloween at the time of filming, that had the episode of Dreams in the Witch House. So you may have watched this with this person, or they may have watched it, or you may have watched it, but there's some kind of confirmation coming through about Dreams in the Witch House with you guys. Maybe you're just Lovecraft fans, I don't know. But anyway, getting back to the Seven of Wands, I feel that this person picks up on the need to defend against you being a bit snippy or a bit jealous or a bit envious, like they see this coming. That doesn't mean that they're judging you for it. It doesn't mean that you're going to demonstratively fall out unless you have. But it does mean that they're aware of it, which confirms that it's a bit malefic, because it's enough of an energy that they pick up on something shadowy happening with you, right? It's not It's not ideal. And as I always say with the Seven of Wands, it reminds me of, it's over Anakin, I have the high ground, which is both an indication that this person at the moment has the high ground, and also that, like I say, you may resonate with my conflict reading, because that was one of the sort of phrases that I used in the drop-down menu, right? With the Empress coming up in the sort of near future, I think I'm telling you about this now because you're going to be further triggered by this person. With the Queen and the Empress, you don't have to... they're not necessarily a female or gender identifying as feminine, should I say. But there is something to do with femininity, with home, with securing family, with maybe even reproductive energies or the union of a particular relationship, the strengthening of a marriage from the sort of emotional labour perspective that is about to come up in their world. And I think it's going to set you off, right? I think if this jealousy wasn't conscious before, it's going to be. It's about to be clear with their next development towards maybe marriage in some cases, or maybe just an Empress energy of abundance. I think it's going to trigger you again, right? You were initially triggered by their quote-unquote star quality, and I think now it's going to be that they're in a position, in a unit, in a place, in a financial circumstance, in a soft life, that you're going to see some kind of expression of, I'm hearing particularly on social media, that's going to put you even more into kind of like, fuck this, why isn't this happening for me? Why is it for this person? And again, like, I understand your frustrations, and if you do want to tackle directly why it is that this hasn't happened for you yet and how to get there, then you can hire me down below. But despite that frustration energy, it is no reason, my dude, to put curse work out there in the form of bad-mouthing somebody who has what you want, or who got to a certain goalpost in their life a little quicker than you did, right? The underpinning of this entire reading is a strength card, and I think this is dual in that it's telling you to be strong, telling you to stick by your moral convictions rather than by your emotional reactivity in this instance. But I think it's also to say, because the strength is about the inner animal self, the kind of, it's very Calvinist, and I don't necessarily like this interpretation, but the sort of, the inner Hyde, right, balanced with the Dr. Jekyll. To take a much newer example of an old archetype, right? It's so there's the sense of the rational overcoming the more animalistic, wild and irrational self. Again, not saying the wild self is a bad thing. I'm just as much of a fan of Women Who Run with the Wolves as the next tarot reader, but in this case we're talking about overcoming personal temptations, personal reactivity, perhaps the tendency to turn into a bit of a snarling beast when something comes up around you that is triggering because you haven't had quite the same privileges. And you can see that this person is opening the mouth of the lion in a way that is taming those, I guess in a Calvinist sense there would be lesser impulses, but those more instinctive impulses, right? It's the rational mind is taking over from the emotional and saying, we are hurt, but that's not okay to sort of perpetuate hurtful behaviour, right? And with the clarifier being the Seven of Pentacles, this is interesting because that's about review. Again, the connections to Pile 2's channel is amazing. But it's almost like you're being asked to take stock of this situation and remind yourself why it was that you invested in this friendship or connection beforehand, and what it is about your own life that you feel is missing versus what it is that you've successfully harvested. You know, in the Smith way, the Seven of Pentacles would be about putting your kind of Mabon harvest into the storeroom, taking stock of what it is that you've achieved over the year or over the years, and saying, I did really well on that, and I'm going to put all of that into one place and celebrate it for myself, and take an assessment of it so that I know what's next. So this is a call simultaneously to both check yourself before you wreck yourself with your own behaviour with this friend, lest you lose the friendship, quite frankly, because they are sensing that they need to defend against you. And I feel if they are in a partnership, the marriage will come first. That's just for some of you, but I feel that very strongly. But it's also the call to just assess what it is that you've achieved, right? Why is it that you feel in a position of lack when you look at this other person's life, when actually you've collected all these pentacles yourself over the years? You've managed to do a lot of things that are very impressive for yourself. You have a lot of good relationships of your own. So it's an invitation to take stock of that. And I think that once you do take stock, you'll be less inclined to put curse words and curse work out there with the phrases that you're choosing about other people. And what I always say about gossip and things like that I've sort of tried to practice myself over the last few years, increasingly so as I've experienced shady characters, is that if you're talking about somebody else, it's a sign that your own shit is not where you want it to be, right? Because nobody's living their best, happiest life in the middle of Disneyland and saying, hold up, I'm not going to go on this ride. I just need to bitch about this friend first. So if you are finding yourself wanting to throw shade on somebody else's circumstance, I think this reading is telling you that that's because there needs to be something taken care of at home. There needs to be something in your own psyche that you're not addressing that you can heal or fix or alleviate at this time. Something that is coming up for you that is marking a point where you can begin a new achievement even, or a new passion, even a new relationship. But until you let go of the need to be talking about somebody else, you can't just enjoy your present moment and your own manifestations. So I think that the advice is that, yes, you want to be a good friend, but also you want to take the focus off anybody else and sort out what it is that you feel about yourself and what it is that you might be projecting in terms of other people's privileges. I understand that the world can be an unjust place, and I understand that it can feel very debilitating when somebody gets an opportunity that you feel you didn't have. But the flip side of that is that if you do believe in manifestation and law of attraction, then nothing that is kind of destined for you in terms of you drawing it in and wishing for it can slip through your fingers, right? You can only push your potentials away by doing things like being obsessed about other people. You can't block what is for you. So I guess this reading is a call to say, well, what is for you? What is it about you specifically, as distinct from this friend, that as yet goes unfulfilled, unmanifested, and how can you work on that instead of focusing on what it is that they're getting better than you, or doing better, or having more of than you? And indeed, if you do feel lack, then how can you get for yourself what it is that they've achieved? Because if they're a good friend and you come to them honestly and you say, you know, sometimes I'm envious of this aspect of your life and I really want to know how to create it for myself, maybe they have some good advice, right? Maybe they can help you out to get to that point quicker. But I think that what's needed here is for you to swallow your pride first and take a solid assessment of the differences between you and what you want from your life, regardless of what this person's up to. I'm also being pushed to say that, you know, I know that everyone says it, but social media is other people's highlight reel. So if this isn't that you're seeing this person's life in person and feeling jealous, then take it with a grain of salt that everything that's happening for them is as glamorous as it seems. Because you may be tapping into their best image of what their life is like, not realising that they go through some of the same struggles that you do, right? Okay, so for those of you for whom this wasn't about jealousy at your end, and you're wondering what the fuck Malefica and marriage tie into, firstly, I want to say congratulations on not speaking about other people in a negative way and on being very sort of ethically coherent and having that kind of integrity, because it's a rare thing in this world, particularly in the age of social media. I want to say that the Malefica in this case is aimed at you, and I don't mean that in the sense that you are under a curse. Please do not take this as some kind of curse diagnostic and me saying, oh, I can alleviate all your troubles for the low, low price of $99.99. That is not what I'm here to do. You don't need to go to anybody who will, message you over WhatsApp and come to you with an egg to diagnose your body and tell you that you've got black magic happening to you and that you need to pay them absolute thousands for them to take it away. Please do not fall for any of that bullshit. You are perfectly capable of protecting yourself. If you'd like me to go into protection measures on this channel, I can. And what I mean by Malefica in this sense as well, as you may have picked up from the sort of former interpretation, is not necessarily a direct curse. This is not necessarily direct magic. This is somebody talking shit about you because they want your life. So if you're resonating with this latter interpretation, I get the feeling that somebody in your 11th house, somebody that you would consider to be a friend or a friendly family member that you genuinely get on with, is looking at your circumstances with a little bit of a sideward glance and maybe sort of bad-mouthing you, or maybe thinking ill of you, or just plain wishing that they were in the position that you're in. So in this instance, I think you are in the Queen of Pentacles Empress energy. You may be somebody who's in a very successful partnership or about to enter into one, and you, in that case, I think would feel it coming and you would already know, and this is your confirmation. You may be quite financially well off. You may be in a good career with the pentacle being held up. You may be quite creative with the fact that she's holding a wand at the same time. Quite prolific in your creative achievements. Quite fertile, which is the other Empress energy. We're talking about literal fertility, so you may have kids or be thinking about family planning at the moment, but it may just be that your babies, in the creative sense, are being displayed to the world, and that is attracting the kind of attention which doesn't wish the best for you, because that person has not self-examined and tried to improve their own circumstances. So instead they're focusing on yours. The song that's on at the moment is Show Yourself. So I'm really being called by Spirit to say, don't let that prevent you from sharing yourself with the world, particularly if you're branded or you have a social media presence linked to your creative pursuits or anything like that. Absolutely do not censor yourself based on the opinions of others about your life, or based on them sending dodginess your way because, for example, you're in a happy relationship. I don't think you should self-censor or get into any kind of fearful energy because of what's going down. I think instead, the reason that I'm telling you about it is because I'm sort of giving you a heads up that in time, and again, you could be an astrologer, but I feel with you this is more of a right timing card. In time, this person will show themselves to be jealous, to be someone who is throwing shade, who is maybe not always, who is... I want to, again, this mirrors my own circumstance, so I'm pushed to say it, but I feel that there is somebody around you who is telling your friends that they're concerned about you and then spreading shit based on their quote-unquote concern that is untrue because they feel jealous, right? And again, it may not be long-term damaging. I do feel that your reputation is a very good one and would be very hard to damage, especially by a person who cannot self-examine. I think that when people do make a habit of bitching about others, that is very easy to see coming as one of their friends. And therefore, I think their attempt to badmouth is quite often brushed aside by those they're giving those statements to, right? But I'm giving you this heads up because there is a sense of defensiveness coming in your sort of present, which is because of the fact that within time this will be revealed. And I think it's being revealed because you would benefit from stepping away from this person for a time or restricting their view of what's happening with you. If you don't know who they are yet, then I think that it is a matter of days, to be quite honest. And I think that with the strength card coming up, you absolutely have the personal strength, personal resilience, the wherewithal, and indeed the strength in your close, intimate relationships to withstand whatever it is that this person's trying to do or trying to say, or even just thinking in a sort of dodgy way about you. This is not a reading to say, ward yourself, protect yourself, oh God, batten down the hatches. Nothing like that, right? I don't think this person's legit capable of harm because frankly, they're not self-developed enough to fire a curse at anyone in any real way. But I think that this is advice from Spirit to you that if you're normally, because you're a quite good person, right? Or you wouldn't be in the latter end of this interpretation. You tend to speak well of others. You tend to try and be pretty ethically sound. So I imagine that if you were in the conversation with a friend and they said something a bit passive-aggressive or backbitey to you, you would do what I've done in the past and say, that seems a bit weird, but it couldn't possibly be that this person has such negative intention against me, so I'll just let that one slide. This is your, hiccups, confirmation. This is your nudge from Spirit to say the next time it comes up and you're like, that seemed passive-aggressive, how strange. Don't gaslight yourself into thinking that it wasn't strange. Don't, again with the hiccups. Don't tell yourself that it was nothing. Because I think the next time it happens with anyone that you know, that's your nudge that this is the person who's a little bit jealous of your situation, a little bit shady. They may grow out of it. Many people do, right? Particularly if you're in the younger age group watching my channel, if you're sort of anywhere from teens to sort of late 20s, it's quite common for people to talk about each other because we're all figuring ourselves out. We're all kind of projecting our own stuff onto other people because we haven't really figured out who we are yet enough to own our own shit. So there is a sense of like, they may sort of develop a little bit more or go through a year or so of time and then come back to you and it's quite a precious relationship still, right? But I think for the time being, the next time someone says something to you which seems like it has an undercurrent of jealousy to it, trust your gut on that, right? Trust your instinct. And with the 7 for you, I think it's an echo of the previous interpretation where, you know, you're being asked to acknowledge how far you have come and what it is that you have achieved that people could be envious of. You know, you may have a fantastic career, you may have a fantastic relationship or be particularly fertile or particularly creative, or you might be an astrologer and you've done well there, you know, whatever it is. And this is a call to say, put that stuff in your storeroom and actually acknowledge it and have a party for it and say, well done you. You know, for some I'm hearing, have a glass of champagne, toast yourself, and the fact that you didn't believe 10 years ago that you would be in the position that you're in and you've got yourself there, right? That deserves congratulation. And part of the reason you've rubbed up against a character who isn't altogether kosher at the moment is so that you acknowledge that you have the kind of life that people could be jealous of, which is some measure of kind of backwards success, right? It's not the best way to recognise your achievements. Like, we could do with it being without shady behaviour from others, but if it has to come in that package, this is Spirit's way of saying, well fucking done for where you've gotten to so far. So there's a sense of that, but there's also with you a distinct interpretation, which is, with the 7 being about reevaluation, look at who it is that you give your time to. How supportive is your friendship group of your current circumstances and indeed of your dreams and goals? If with the Empress energy you want to have a family, or, you know, if you're in a different pile, you want to have like an Ohana or a core tribe that is very different to what you're experiencing at the moment, or you want to move forward career-wise or something else, you know, like if you've got a big dream that isn't where you're currently at and you are really in the mode of chasing that dream at the moment, do the lifestyles of the people immediately around you fit with the person that you would be having achieved that? Is the encouragement of your close friendship circle going to fit who you will become? Are there some people that you might need to see less in order to, for example, lose weight or climb the career ladder without jeopardising your reputation at the office party because of your dodgy friend, or maintain your marriage without fear of somebody trying to get between you and your partner, or whatever it is, right? And again, that's not to say to drop anybody, but it's to say that where you put your energy is what will feed back to you. So if you have some friends that you're like, yeah, I didn't know whether that was a jealous comment, I'm not sure. And you also have some friends that you're maybe not as close with, whose goals and whose lifestyles completely align with where you want to be, and who have been nothing but supportive to you so far. All you need to do is transfer your attention for a little while to those friends who are in the same vibration as you are. You may also have resonated with, which pile was it? I want to say pile 2 of my red orange, but I'll double check that and I'll put the link down below. But the one that was about sort of elevating from a particular friendship circle that were chatting shit about a person, and sort of how to maybe change groups a little bit without ever hurting anyone or being actively antagonistic. There was some stuff mentioned in there about that, so if that resonates, please check that out down below. But there's certainly a sense of making sure that everybody in your boat right now is travelling in the same direction you are. Or to put it another way, if you've gotten into the elevator for your goal and you've pressed the floor you want to be at, are you going to let in a bunch of friends who have clicked basement, right? That's not to say that you'll never see them again. It's not to say that you cut off from them in a rude way, or that you don't give them your time if they approach you. But it is to say that where you have the choice of how you're going to spend your day, perhaps you reach out to the person who is more in alignment with where you want to be than where you came from before, right? And for many of you, if you are in a marriage or you are in a partnership, think about the friends that are in alignment with your partner and would be supportive of that connection, and would be the sorts of people that your partner would appreciate as people and carry that kind of dignity to them. And, you know, put your attention with those people who fit your marriage, who fit your partnership, who fit your goals, whatever they are, and who fit you, who don't want to drag you like crabs in the pot back down to wherever they are if they don't have some of the same manifested successes that you do at the moment. Because remember as well, everybody can always develop in whichever direction they want. Whether or not we were born with privilege, we can always, in a sort of manifestation, a magical universe, we can always adjust our mindset and circumstances to put us on the trajectory of the things that we desire, right? And if you truly believe that, then you'll also see that there's no reason for these people from your past to be jealous, because they're perfectly capable, as you once were, of putting themselves on the path to a good relationship or on the path to a better job or whatever it is. So there's kind of no justification. I don't want you to feel guilty about your station, is what I'm wanting to say. If you are in a good place, I don't want the people around you who don't have the same things you do to make you feel like shit because you do, because they could get it, right? If their focus and attention was on that, they would be along that path. But for whatever reason, it's not their journey at the moment. So don't stop it from being yours. Don't sabotage what it is that you have because other people might badmouth you or might backbite or just give you passive-aggressive vibes. Instead, when you feel that energy, trust your instinct, trust your gut, know that you are the Empress and you do know the difference between a genuine dodgy comment and something that wasn't intended that way. And just withdraw yourself if you feel that stuff coming in. And then you won't have to defend, because the distancing from the people who would do that will happen quite naturally by virtue of you just not being in the same worldview, not being on the same stream, right? So I hope that was helpful to you, whichever interpretation you slotted into. Please do consider getting a more extensive reading with me down below, or checking out the rest of the channel. There is also a donation button if you found it especially helpful and you want to help me through this winter. But if not, please like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly, share with any friends who might enjoy a lucky dip, and I hope to see you soon. Pile 3's channeled. Let's go. Pink is a big colour for some of you. I don't know whether you're... I feel like some of you are painting something pink or dyeing your hair pink or something like that. I have pink hair, so hi. It's a good colour, yeah. Mine is neon magenta at the moment, although it may change, but I'm keeping it in the realm of pink. But there's something to do with pink, like a pink dress or a pink room or something like that. I don't even know whether it's still going, but for some of you, the charity Pink Stinks will be relevant, which was a group that I used to be involved in that sort of prevented the pinkification of places like Early Learning Centre and Toys R Us in terms of marketing gendered, but in a negative way, toys to girls that were all to do with emotional labour and catering to men in some way. This was a charity that campaigned against things like having all of the toys for girls, in inverted commas, being ovens or makeup or other things to sort of cater to the domestic male-oriented life, versus all of the toys for boys being about exploration and adventure and all these things that girls can also enjoy. So I say all of that with a caveat that I don't even know whether they're still running. But for some of you, very gendered stuff may be an issue that you're thinking about at the moment. You may be getting into feminism. The reason I'm getting Pink Stinks is that there's this undercurrent of like standing up for girls, or standing up for like standing against gender polarities in some extreme form, particularly at a young age. So some of you are parents and you're like not wanting your children to be raised in a negatively gendered way. Some of you are getting into the Riot Girl movement, in which case, thumbs up. That is definitely my wheelhouse. Comment down below and recommend me any bands you're into, and I'll do the same back to you. But yeah, there's this kind of pink stinks, girls to the front energy with this. Maybe even for some of you, you are transitioning and you're identifying with feminine energy, but also about like received femininity. What is it that we consider to be feminine energy in a world that does want to sell, ovens to little girls and pole dancing outfits to children of 5, etc., right? What does that mean for your own identification as feminine versus the state of being a woman? Like, if you're somebody who's sort of newly identifying or newly acknowledging an identification with womanhood, perhaps it's a good point to explore the intersection of feminism with larger cultural ideas, mostly from porn, about what it is to be girly, right? Or which tend to be about beauty work. They tend to be about sort of presenting a certain way rather than inhabiting an essentially female nature. And I suppose my message, if you're on this pile, is what is female nature, right? How do you define it? Comment down below as to what you think being a woman or femininity or anything like that is, because I do feel for many of you this is a concern that you're sort of going over and testing at the minute. However it is that you were born versus however it is that you identify, everyone's welcome here, but I think that's an interesting area for you. And if you're not remotely female identified and you weren't born female either, I think this is maybe a call to examine the relationship to the feminine within your life and what it is that you consider to be woman's things, female qualities, stuff that the females in your life should be quote unquote taking care of, versus your own role and I dare say your own level of responsibility in society at large in terms of what you seek, /perpetuate, etc., etc. So all very interesting stuff. It's a really distinct message, but I'm intrigued to see what you guys sort of think in the comments on that one, because I know that hopefully when this channel gets bigger, there's going to be a wide variety of people from different backgrounds viewing this with all kinds of different takes on that pink is for girls type thing. And honestly, this is partly why I have pink hair. I mean, I'll go into the mythology of magenta when we get to that part of the spectrum readings, but pink also to me is like the riot girl anti-pinkification response. On to a further message. For some of you, you're getting engaged or you've just gotten engaged. Congratulations. That is fantastic news. If you've been suspecting that something like that is on the horizon, this is your confirmation that it definitely is. I'm going to say that's not for my single Pringles, but you know, if you're in a relationship and you're like, when is my partner going to ask? Or when are they going to take it to the next stage of commitment if marriage is not for you? Then this is your heads up to say now, or, you know, within a couple of weeks of you seeing this. And again, if there are any marriages predicted by this channel, I want an invite. Tell me down below, yeah? What else? I'm seeing this kind of crow claw, and I'm not getting the crow message that I got in a different pile. I'm getting something about like long thumbnails or so. There's like, you know what I'm seeing? This is really, I don't know where this is going, but I'm going to say it because it's coming through. You know the film Mystery Men? And I think it's the baddie in it, but it may be one of the superheroes. There's somebody in it with like really long yellowed nails through sort of lack of care and caution. And I'm seeing a pair of hands like that with very yellowed nails. Some of you, this is really specific, guys, but I'm hearing it. Some of you are chiropodists, whatever the pronunciation is. So you work with people's hands and feet and you deal with nails that are perhaps a little bit overlong or perhaps, you know, haven't had the best kinds of care and they're a bit sort of smelly and yellowing. I'm sorry if that's grossing any of you out, but you know, many people are in jobs where they deal with these kinds of realities, and I'm pulled to say, if you're part of my chiropodist gang, hello and welcome. This message is for you. Equally, some of you may be like manicurists, pedicurists, and have encountered some slightly iffy nails recently, shall we say. My nails are not the best. I'm always like shielding them from you, now I've said that. But, you know, Punk, Spike from Buffy, the chipped as fuck, I don't really care. I just know that you guys often do. But yeah, there's something to do with nails and sort of nail care and things like that. So let me know, because I do feel that's just a straightforward confirmation message. There's not really anything to it. So let me know how it resonates in the comments. Ancient Kingdom is the song at the minute. For some of you, you've been watching like Ancient Aliens or stuff to do with kind of ancient civilizations, starseed communities, all that kind of stuff. My personal advice on that would be to take a lot of it with a grain of salt and to examine the notion that that we are all starseeds from different planets, which is convenient to come up at a time period where we know we've fucked over our own, no? It's like, it's almost as if this collective narrative of, oh, we're all ancient aliens just happens to be a good out for, oh, P.S., we've wrecked our own planet, you know? But anyway, that's just my personal opinion on those things. You could identify with being starseed and more power to you. That's fantastic. Let me know in the comments what it is that you think about that, what your history with it is. Maybe you can convince me, I don't know. Like, I'm still open to it, but I just see it as partly a psychological pattern for the moment. But whatever it is, there's something about like ancient civilizations. Some of you are anthropologists, archaeologists, etc. Hail and welcome. Again, let me know. You sound like interesting friends to have. I'm very glad you're on my channel. But there's something to do with that. I'm also being pulled to say that when I do the orange-yellow component of my spectral readings, which isn't yet filmed, we will do antiquity as one of the piles. So if you're in like museum work or archaeology or anything like that, if you are my Indiana Jones collective, that one might be for you and you might want to subscribe. What else? That's it for that message, apparently. There's something to do with triangles or pyramids, but again, that fits to ancient aliens, so I'm not going to go much further with that. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to say that some of you within that realm, you may be studying sacred geometry, and this is just your confirmation that this is a channel that you should be on, and that there is more stuff here for you, whether that be in the rest of this reading or in my other readings. It's up to you. I'm not going to push you to stay, but yeah, if you've been dealing with sacred geometry, hi, confirmation. If you're new to this, I'm your gal. What else? What do I want to say? I'm hearing Ring of Fire, the Johnny Cash song. What's that about? Some of you at the moment are feeling that you've gotten yourself into a very sticky situation. That you've entered into a ring of fire, that you're sort of... It's almost like you stepped into a position that you thought was beneficial and then realised that you were trapped on all sides. The kind of flames are billowing up around you. And I don't mean that in a literal sense, so please don't get afraid of house fires and all the rest of it. I mean this in the metaphorical sense of you perhaps thought there was maybe one obstacle to a thing and you stepped round it, you sidestepped it very successfully. But then you came to be stood in a position where actually a lot of things are not going well and you're now panicking that you can't get out of it. For some, I'm hearing it's a contract that you signed that there is like seemingly no escape from for the moment, but it's not going well. Clandestiny is the song that's on, so it's like this could be that some of you are dealing with ancestral work as well, and that there is a literal destiny to your clan that you feel is something unavoidable to you. I'm even hearing for some of you there is a fear about inherited health issues. And again, I'm not a medical professional. I don't presume to diagnose anybody or make any kind of proclamations about those things. What I am saying is that it's been on your mind. So if that's you, you will know, and it will already be something you've been thinking about. But yeah, there's something here about like something you're contracted to or something that you're afraid is your destiny, which you can't escape, and it's sort of around you like this ring of fire. So what's the conclusion to that message, universe? There's another M thing with it. Right, I'm seeing a letter M reflected in one of the crystals that you guys can't see. And I'm being told to pull another word from this. We've already had one word too many this week, but let's go for it. I'm sure there'll be more that you guys can suggest that will fill in. So M is for malfunction. There is a malfunction. Right, let me just have a think on this, guys. So the solution to the ring of fire is a malfunction. Yes, a big strong yes, okay. Oh, I see, right. Okay, right. Twofold interpretation. For those of you who are worrying about the health stuff, it may be that you've had like a bit of a scan or something like that, which has come up and made you worry that like, oh, you know, my great auntie Enid, she had these same problems too, and I bet it's that. Look into whether there is any kind of laboratory malfunction or any kind of, what's the word, guys? Give me the word. Any malpractice, right, that is potentially misleading you towards an assumption about your health which is a bit doomsday-ish, a bit much, a bit extra, right? Because I think even if you are having health problems at the moment, there may be a fear for you at the moment that is disproportionate about that, and part of that fear comes from a malfunction. So for some of you, this will be a blip on a scanner screen. For others of you, this will be that you are, I say this in the nicest possible way as a fellow sufferer, that you are malfunctioning as somebody with, for instance, like depression or dysphoria. So the way that you're perceiving this thing is making it bigger than it is because you already have a brain chemical tendency to catastrophization. So if you're afraid that your ring of fire is a health outcome that you can't avoid, this might be in part to do with your idea that everything is always worse than it is, or that in times of so, shall we say, chemical trouble or not so great mental health, things become bigger than they are. So it's not to say don't get your checkups, it's not to say don't follow up scans, etc. I absolutely advocate everyone on my channel keep up with their health. But what I will say is that if you're really afraid of a kind of doomsdayish outcome, particularly if you're relating it to an ancestral history of a genetic condition or of something which has a pattern through a lineage, just know that there is a malfunction happening which is sort of making that bigger than it is right now. For others, where it's not a health issue, the malfunction is the way out of the ring of fire. Now, what do I mean by that? If you're in a contract, there is wiggle room because there is a loophole, a malfunction in the system of the contract, and it just requires further investigation from you. If you're in the UK, a good charity to go to is Citizen Advice with stuff like this, and just present to them, for example, a job contract, a rental contract, and say, this isn't going so well for me. Is there any way that you can see of kind of wriggling out of this, or any loopholes in it that I may not have perceived? I would say absolutely in either case, seek the advice of somebody as to what that malfunction is. If this is more of a social situation and you've got yourself into a ring of fire where you kind of can't undo what's been done, or you feel attacked on all sides by people, what I'm hearing is there is room for social error, and that is the malfunction. So look at the people throwing the accusations, or perhaps in your group in terms of reputation, etc., etc. You adapt for you because it's a large audience viewing this, so it is a general reading. To get more specific, book with me privately, by the way. But there is something here which is, I want to say, a malfunction of somebody around you that is going to be your get out from the ring of fire, right? So they're going to miss something, or missay, or misstep in some way. And it's like almost as if the universe is saying, wait for their error, because that's going to be your doorway out of this situation. I would love to know how this resonates down below. Like, I'm really intrigued by this now, because that almost sounds like a social engineering thing for some of you. But yeah, whatever it is, you're in the ring of fire right now, but you're not trapped there. And the way that you're going to get out is that M is for malfunction, and you're going to be able to escape because of some kind of error in the system. For a small number, you also picked the pile where we were looking at green. Pink and green obviously are both heart chakra colours, so that fits. But where green is about systems, and I'm now hearing that song, is it Glitch Gang? But anyway, he says the glitch in the system, right? So it's like there is a glitch in the matrix which will allow you to pass through and out of this situation, which you consider to be an impossible barricade from all sides. It is not, right? There is a roof hatch. It's just a case of being really on the ball socially, technically, legally, or indeed with medical malpractice, just to see what that out could be for you. And in the meantime, I would say, take care of your health, eat healthily, go for a run if people have told you to go for a run, go forward with the behaviours that nurture your health, your friendships, your job, whatever it is, but know that this isn't something that is inescapable. It's not like it's fated for you to just perish in this ring of fire. That's what's coming through. Andromeda is the song that's on, so again, for those of you who resonated with the starseed thing, Andromeda may be significant. I'm also seeing the letter Z, so again, I haven't done it yet, but the Z is for reading, maybe for you, and I would subscribe and keep your eyes peeled for that if that resonates. But it's going to be a little while before that comes, because there's going to be a few more months of this Marseille Mini alphabet thing. Anything else, guys? You're harmonising, right? I heard there was a little bit of that song that went into like Bill and Ted harmonies just for a second there, and that always fills me with absolute joy. But it was a really brief period in a song that is mostly quite sort of heavy. I want to say that there's somebody in your life that you're in perfect harmony with, and you need to look at that, not in a negative way, in the sense of focusing your attention on it. So if you're a bit frustrated with a particular relationship, but you know you harmonise well with that person, focus on your harmonious aspects. Attend to your vibration regarding them, for those of you who are in manifestation terms. And if it's not that, and if you're just worried about your life in general or worried about another issue, there is somebody that you're very close to, that you harmonise with, that is the Bill to your Ted or the Ted to your Bill, that deeply understands you and makes you happy. And the final message for you is, put all of your focus and attention on your relationship with that person for a little while. Go see them, call them up, just think about them. For some of you who are artists, maybe draw them, maybe write something nice about them or to them or for them. But it's like, divert your attention to that, and your mood will improve such that other things start to resolve themselves a little bit, yeah? Plus, it's just nice to stay in the energy of connections that are really lovely, isn't it? Like, I might even go away from this reading and do my own Emmys for memories and just focus on somebody in my life who means a lot, right? So, yeah, I hope that you can do the same, Pile 3. If you did want to book with me, details down below. If you want to donate to me, I would really appreciate that. Details also down below. If you did like this reading and you don't want to give a financial offering at this time, or you're unable, that's absolutely fine. Please like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. Comment anything that you didn't like, because I'm open to interpretations, criticism, etc. as well. Any feedback is appreciated. But I hope that it all goes well for you. I hope that you can find the glitch in the system and escape the ring of fire. And I hope that overall your attention is on the positive connections in your world and the beauty of the colour pink.